Hello, everyone. My name is Dante Rogers, the newest board member at Youth Represent. Welcome to this year's Fall Impact Briefing. During the next 30 minutes, you will hear from our executive director and several program directors who can speak to you about our progress. But before we get started, I would like to speak to you about the mission of Youth Represent and why the organization is so near and dear to my heart. Youth Represent is dedicated to combating the oppression of youth of color and provides them with opportunities to progress and lead meaningful lives. Youth Represent has served over 20,000 young people. I have been one of the young people that was extremely lucky that Youth Represent existed. As a former client, I can say that Youth Represent made a lot possible for me, and I wouldn't be in my current position without them. It can be difficult to fathom the true impact of the work of the selfless unless you are in the dire circumstances that some of the youth we encounter happen to find themselves. All of the greatness of Youth Represent wouldn't be possible without the partnerships and generous contributors like yourselves. We really appreciate your continued support that we've received over the years, allowing the organization to grow and thrive as it has. Thank you for joining us today. I will turn it over to our executive director, Mike Pope.
Dante, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your leadership at Youth Represent. We're so excited to have you as one of our newest board members to join an incredible board, an incredible staff, and an incredible organization, if I do say so myself, of Youth Represent. And welcome, everybody. I really love these events as opportunities for us to have a brief conversation and to update individuals on what's happening here at Youth Represent, and to hear from folks that are leading those programs and to learn a little bit more about what we do. As many of you know, to frame a little bit of who's going to be speaking today, we're going to have folks from each of our respective departments talking about the work and updating you all on what's happening at Youth Represent and in the youth justice space. You'll be hearing one from our direct legal services, two from our policy advocacy, and three from our strategic litigation. But before I hand it off, I want to just take a brief moment to highlight one of my favorite things about Youth Represent's programmatic model, and that is the way that these three programs work together. And you'll hear about this as you hear folks speaking to their respective programs. But really, you'll hear first from Dale Ventura. Dale runs our direct legal services, and through this work, we directly represent young people in court, right? So we are at court representing young people and learning from them about what's happening on the ground in courts and as they face different systems of oppression and discrimination. This work includes work such as housing, employment, education, records, and family court. As we learn from the young people that we're supporting through these programs, we're also understanding what the actual needs are and how we can be using those experiences to bring systemic large-scale change. And that large-scale change happens through our other two programmatic models, which you'll be hearing from after Dale. You'll be hearing from Shamari Ward, who runs our strategic litigation, and a little bit of an update as to how strategic litigation has been going for Youth Represent. And then finally, last but not least, Kate Rubin, you'll hear a lot about our policy work, specifically around how we are seeking policy change on the city and on the state level, and how we're leading an exciting campaign called the Youth Justice and Opportunity Act. And we will have visuals, which is always great. So we're really excited to give you all a brief update. We're recording this session so that we can also ensure that we're providing this to everybody else that's interested in learning about Youth Represent, but we welcome you. We're really excited. And let me hand it off first to Dale Ventura. So Dale, welcome in.
Thank you so much, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Dale Ventura, and I am the Director of Community Legal Services at Youth Represent. As Mike had mentioned, I'm going to talk to you all about our legal services, and then you're going to hear from my colleague Shamari Ford about our strategic litigation. So it's really great to have you all here with us. From our last briefing in the spring, I talked about our strategic plan, namely our plan to expand access to our services to more crossover youth, which are youth who are impacted by not only the criminal legal system, but other systems, such as the child welfare system, education system, and public housing and shelter systems. This year, we have been able to expand our workshops and legal services into schools and shelters. Through our medical legal partnership with the Mount Sinai Adolescent Health Center, we have expanded our programming to 3 high schools through their school-based health clinics. At these schools, roughly 82 to 90% of the students that attend come from low socioeconomic households. And one school in particular is a transfer school, which specifically supports students who have previously dropped out of school or have fallen behind in credits. Now, through the course of our work with students at these schools, we are seeing a wide range of needs, with most of them involving interaction with the criminal legal system and the child welfare system. Because we are in schools, we've also expanded our content in our Know Your Rights workshops to now include students' rights when it comes to interacting with school safety agents, as they are employees of the NYPD. Now, there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to being a student and one's constitutional rights and protections. Our workshop equips students with the critical knowledge to keep themselves safe and to know what they can and cannot do, right? Especially when these interactions can lead to criminal court proceedings. So in addition to this expansion, we've also increased access to our services to youth who are experiencing homelessness. We have been working with Marsha's House and the Street Work Project Drop-In Center for quite some time now, but most recently, we began providing our workshops and legal services to youth at the Covenant House. We are extremely excited about this partnership, and we are actively looking for ways to deepen our relationship to further support more of the programs at the Covenant House. Now, aside from the expansion of our partnerships, we have seen a great year with our direct legal services. This past year, we provided 1,023 legal services to our youth, of which 397 involved full legal representation on a case, 171 of those involved legal advice, and 343 involved reviewing a client's rap sheet and correcting any errors on them. And I'd like to note that this is 3 times the amount of rap sheets we were able to review and counsel clients on in the previous year, specifically. We also delivered 63 Know Your Rights workshops to 1,111 young participants, provided 26 staff workshops. And with that, right, in talking about our legal program, I do want to lift up some of the changes we have made to our legal practice. And a lot of these changes is to really make our work more holistic. And this really began with the hiring of our first ever in-house social worker. YR is now better equipped to take on the many needs of our youth in ways we simply couldn't before. Through our interdisciplinary approach, we were able to respond to not only a client's discrete legal issues, but we're also able to identify their needs that are adjacent to and at times directly linked to their system involvement. Whether a client is experiencing houselessness, struggling with the trauma of an arrest, or being detained, our legal team is able to simultaneously address these challenges during the course of our legal advocacy. And just to illustrate, right, let's say a client is returning to court because of an active bench warrant. Our attorney can now focus their attention on negotiations with the prosecutor, right, to secure an outcome that has minimal collateral consequences on the client's life. But at the same time, right, our social worker is able to be fully present with a client who may be experiencing severe anxiety and symptoms of PTSD by being back in a criminal courtroom setting. Now, a paralegal may also be present, as they often have been the ones supporting the client throughout the entire process and have developed a trusting relationship with them. And with all this, right, it's important to note that judges are more likely to pay attention to a client who has multiple people supporting them, as it shows community engagement and a support network that unfortunately is often lacking in a young person's life. We're also able to write more impactful court advocacy letters that lean into the strengths and resilience factors of our young clients. We're able to provide a more clinical perspective that is more compelling and persuasive to a judge and prosecutor, where we have the opportunity to further humanize our clients and have them seen beyond the written allegations against them. I have to say, the growing collaborative nature of YR is really what keeps me continuously motivated in our work. The work is tough. It can be quite disheartening, but the team on the ground continues to fight for each and every client and for each other. They're always there making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're processing the secondary trauma from the work, and at the same time, lifting each other up in not only the big victories, right, but also the small ones. Thank you all for sharing space and taking the time. I now hand it over to Shamari Ward, our litigation director.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shamari Ward, and I'm the Director of Litigation here at Youth Represent. My job at Youth Represent is to work with our staff and community partners to identify and investigate potential individual or class action cases that provide systemic changes for young people from indigent and historically oppressed communities. Presently, Youth Represent is pursuing systemic litigation in the area of employment discrimination, where employers unlawfully deny our clients job opportunities based on our clients' past interactions with law enforcement and the criminal legal system. Gainful employment is a vital reentry need, among others, for the young people we serve. Thus, Youth Represents litigation in this area has included lawsuits against Walmart, Winolo, Uber Eats, Macy's, Madison Square Garden, and so on. Our case against Walmart is in the discovery phase, and we are exchanging documents and information crucial to framing our legal claims. Both our Winolo and Uber Eats cases, on the other hand, have either settled or are on a path to settlement. All cases involve clients who sought out Youth Represent to assist them in navigating significant barriers to assuring meaningful lives post-criminal system involvement. To date, Youth Represents strategic litigation has secured for clients and class members over $8 million in settlement funds, which has provided support for over 24,000 individuals wrongly discriminated against for having system involvement. Since being at Youth Represent, I have had the pleasure of overseeing and vetting cases that systemically and financially benefit the young people we serve. And the opportunity to be gainfully employed without question is of paramount importance to our clients. However, our clients have needs that extend beyond the realm of employment. These legal issues are fertile ground for future strategic litigation cases. Thus, in an effort to improve our ability to serve clients in this manner, we are in the midst of developing and implementing our own litigation screening tool to ensure that young people have direct input into our litigation efforts. Through this screening process, we aim to focus our litigation on the areas of legal practice where we can bring the greatest level of systemic change. Youth Represent also administers the Youth Defense and Reentry Clinic at Brooklyn Law School in an effort to bolster our legal practice and prepare future legal advocates for this area of work. Through the clinic, we have been able to co-facilitate symposiums on important reentry issues, and these talks and panel discussions connect Youth Represent to other organizations and advocates within the field, which in turn broadens our organizational network. An added benefit is to have talented and committed law students passionate about our work, assisting us on some of the most complex cases we encounter. Additionally, our strategic litigation uses laws our policy team have championed as a mechanism for social change, laws that aim to counter discriminatory laws that historically have oppressed under-resourced communities of color. As more of these discriminatory laws get rolled back and new, more fair and progressive laws replace those outdated laws, Youth Represent sees an obligation to ensure corporations and governmental entities with which our clients interact treat them fairly in accordance with these updated laws. Using strategic litigation, we are able to carry out this obligation. Strategic litigation remains one of Youth Represent's most useful tools in our toolbox. As such, we plan to utilize litigation to our clients' benefit as often as possible. And this is something that I'm personally and professionally looking forward to, because Youth Represent means something not only to our clients, but to our staff members who work tirelessly to identify these cases to bring them to management and to bring them to anyone who's able to litigate them in any meaningful way. And for that, I am eternally grateful to Youth Represent, to our staff, and to the clients that we serve for being patient with us and for trusting us with these very sensitive issues in their lives. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Kate Rubin. Thanks.
Thanks, Shamari. Appreciate it. I'm Kate Rubin. I'm the Director of Policy here at Youth Represent. So my job is to try to get some of those laws that Shamari was talking about changed. As many of you have heard us say before, we work at the state and city level to push for policies using a divest, invest framework. So governments must divest from systems that arrest, detain, and imprison Black youth and other youth of color, and invest in the kinds of programs and resources that make young people and communities truly safe. Everything from safe, high-quality housing to schools to parks and green spaces to violence interruption and reentry services, including legal services. In the first year of our strategic plan, our goals here at Youth Represent were to advance the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act campaign, which I'll talk more about, continue to defend past victories, most notably raise the age legislation, and build youth leadership across our policy work through our youth committee and our City Dreamers advocacy camp. I'm excited to share some of the work of the past 6 months since our last funder briefing. And one thing that our youth organizers and youth committee members have been really clear about, and that's informed our work, is that our campaign for the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act, which we call YJNO, has to not just center young people, but actually center youth joy. Even though what we're fighting for, age-appropriate treatment of young adults in the criminal legal system, is very serious. We believe that the way to win is to have a campaign that is warm and welcoming and even fun, because more and more young people will want to join it, and because we want our campaign to actually embody what opportunities and resources for young people can look like, how successful it can be, and how beautiful it can be. So a lot of the work of the last 6 months has just been organizing, bringing people together, engaging more and more young people and organizations and elected officials in the campaign, and uplifting our narrative that investing in youth, not incarcerating them, is the path to public safety. Great, we get the visual. So, but now I can't see my notes. Hold on. So in February, we worked with the Youth Shelter Westchester and the Westchester Children's Association on a rally for youth justice, highlighting the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act, and 3 other campaigns: Right to Remain Silent, Clean Slate, and Solutions Not Suspensions. The rally was indoors, which was great because it was February, but also great because the acoustics were amazing and they had this really great DJ. Here's Felicia from our youth committee speaking about YJNO. In February, we also worked with Assembly Member Cunningham's office on a panel on youth justice and YJNO for the annual Legislators of Color Caucus weekend in Albany. You see Aaliyah here speaking on the panel, along with Messiah Remkasoon from Youth Justice Network, one of our closest partner organizations. In April, we also worked with the Newburgh LGBTQ+ Center to organize a panel discussion on the impact of incarceration on queer youth, which was moderated by Syke Wilson, our youth development coordinator. And that was also a chance to build support for YJNO in the Hudson Valley, which is one of the key sort of regions where we need to build legislative support. In May, we held our first big Albany Advocacy Day for YJNO. We brought over 150 young people and advocates to Albany, met with over 24 elected officials, and had a rally on the steps of the Capitol, which you see here. This is Senator Cordell Clear talking about why the legislature must support young people and pass YJNO. It was really moving to hear chants for youth justice echoing through the halls of Albany and the Capitol. When we do lobby days in Albany, youth committee members are meeting with elected officials and their staffers in their offices, but they're also having impromptu meetings with legislators in the halls of the Capitol, as they are here with Assembly Member Khalil Anderson, one of the youngest members in the Assembly. And I'll just say also at the end of session, Syke and I were able to go back to Albany, joining many other organizations to help get clean slate legislation sealing criminal records, over the finish line. And I'm very happy to say that we believe that legislation will be signed later this week. The priority for YJNO is, of course, to pass our legislation, which would expand, go back one slide, sorry. The priority is to pass our legislation, which expands alternatives to incarceration and record sealing for young people up to age 25. But the campaign is equally about promoting opportunities for youth through budget justice. So you can go to the next slide. and through literally connecting young people to resources. You could go ahead. Thanks, Jade. So in June, we marched with the Close Rikers campaign and Communities United for Police Reform in the Care Not Cuts March. And in August, we had our second annual Youth Resource and Opportunities Fair in Brownsville, returning to Lincoln Terrace Park, where we held our campaign launch event in the spring of 2022. Another really significant part of the organizing work is what we call discourse sessions, where we meet with young people, usually at their school or through an organization they're part of, and present about YJNO. But then we can get into a real conversation about what the bill would do, what would change if it passed, and how young people think that other young people should be treated in the legal system. It's one of the ways that we engage new people and organizations in the work, but it's also been a really important way to get feedback on the legislation, which over the past year, we've actually incorporated into the proposed legislative language. This past year, youth committee members are leading more and more of the discourse sessions. So here you see post-it notes from a Train the Trainer session that we had with them. And then finally, in October last month, which is Youth Justice Action Month, we partnered with the Right to Remain Silent campaign on a youth justice speak out in the Bronx. Here you see Cody, one of our youth committee members, reading a poem he wrote. Its opening line has become an unofficial tagline of the campaign, YJNO, help each other grow. Cody graduated last year from the City Dreamers Advocacy Camp. This fall, he's working with Psych as a junior facilitator for that program, which is running right now. And will end in December. But so that's all the positive campaign building. Of course, while we're building that campaign for YJNO to expand protections for youth and older young people up to age 25, we're still fighting to maintain the victories that we've won, most notably raise the age. And throughout the summer, we saw an increasing drumbeat in the press, highlighting some of the most horrific stories, including gun violence stories happening around the state and linking them often totally inaccurately to raise the age legislation. And since we know that next year is an election year, and there will be especially heightened rhetoric about crime, we're laying the groundwork now to defend raise the age. Several of you helped us raise money to hire a public relations firm and to work with partners all over the city and state to support that effort between now and 2024, and that work is well underway. So we're going into 2024 with a lot of work to do, but a solid plan and foundation. We'll be fighting against any rollbacks to raise the age, building momentum for the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act, developing skills and leadership of youth committee members, and across all that work, continuing to shape the narrative away from criminalization and towards investment in young people, families, and communities. I'll hand it back to Mike.
Over to me. Thank you so much, Kate. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Shamari. Of course, Dante, it's wonderful having you, Maggie Lear, as our board chair. It's so inspiring to hear from each of you about the work that Youth Represent has been doing over the last 6 months. And I just want to say that by joining us here today, you're all a part of this. You're all a part of Youth Represent and of youth justice. And what that means is believing deeply that centering young people's voices is key to making transformational change. It means that believing that every young person supported through what Dale was talking about through direct services, every one young person that's supported is transformational for that young person, but also recognizing that the problem that we're facing is much broader than just that young person. And that's bringing in the strategic litigation, bringing in the policy work, and that truly transformational change can happen by hearing young people, by supporting them, and by providing both direct and transformational change. And so that's what we are. That's what we are excited to have many of you who've been supporters for a long time, many partners that are here on the call today. It's so wonderful seeing so many of you, and it's just an absolute joy. So thank you for spending this time. Just want to uplift two kind of requests. One is we have Giving Tuesday. Can you believe it? We're actually almost at Thanksgiving time, which also means we're almost at the time where we will all receive 87,000 emails from nonprofits on Giving Tuesday. Youth Represent will be one of those. If you want to participate and support this incredible work of Youth Represent, we invite you for our Giving Tuesday campaign. Secondarily, also just make sure you're on our email blast and campaign. Many of the policy work that we're doing, much of the strategic litigation work and our expansion, all of this we push out to our broader community. So I just want to say, please make sure you're signed up for our email. And then just end by saying thank you. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for believing in young people and supporting this work. And thank you for the team on the back end running all of this, which is Jade and Maya. Maya just put a link in the chat. We couldn't do any of this work without you all and without incredible folks and without incredible young people that we serve. So thank you all. And we appreciate your support. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, mpope@youthrepresent.org. Love to talk. Let us know. But thank you all.